All right, I made a homemade ignition wire stripper. Uh, well, I started out with a piece of hardwood. I drilled an 8 millimeter hole, and you got to play with this end of it. This is set up for 8.5 millimeter wire. So I start out with an 8 millimeter hole, and just reamed it a little bit bigger, and then I just whittled out this area, and that made my depth. Okay, so if you have, like, let's say you have a 10 millimeter wire, you're not gonna whittle out so much. You make this a little bit higher, and this side a little bit higher. Okay, it's pretty easy. It's pretty self-explanatory. I was gonna buy I just had to do wires on my Corvette, and I like them, custom made. I like them. I don't like them all over the place, so I always make my own wires. So I do this like maybe once every 10, 15 years. So I was going to buy a wire stripper crimper, and I seen him $70, $80. I said, I'm going to use it one time to sit in the drawer forever. So I says, let me just do it, the way I've been doing it for years. So usually what I do is I take a razor blade, and I go around and around. I cut the wire, and I pull it, and maybe three, four times later, you get one, because you cut through it, So that's very difficult to do. You're not going to get it one shot every time. No way, no way. And then I would use a pair of pliers. You know, At least I got a decent crimper now. This was only like 11 bucks on eBay. Now this doesn't strip. All this does is crimp. Well, thin wires, like 10 gauge, 22 gauge, 18 gauge. It'll do that. But I bought this for the crimper. You know, I was gonna buy a ratchet crimper. I seen ones for like, I don't know, 50, $60, the cheaper ones, and it only did one thing. I says, it's useless. I mean, to me, that'd be useless because I don't use it enough. So I opted to get this because this will do a lot of different profiles, different crimps, lots of different type, little wires, tiny wires. See, this happens to be for 8.5 millimeter. You stick it; it has the profile for it. When you have your crimping thing in there, and you just go down with it, and it crimps it. Does a nice job. This for 11 bucks, this does really good. And like I said, I bought this one because I'll utilize this for other things. Okay, so getting back to my stripper. Okay, so I put the wire in, just just feel it with my finger or just eyeball it, and went to the end. Now you're gonna have to play with this part. Like I said, you have to whittle it out, play around with it, and you know, it's a little trial and error. But you'll get it. And you put the razor blade down. Don't press so hard because you go right through the wood and everything. Just easy. Press it down easy. Spin the wire, spinning the wire, and you'll feel it come to the end. Okay, I felt it come to the end. And you spin it, get those fibers broken, not the center, and pull it out. Works like a charm every time. Perfect. Perfect. But like I said, you got to play with it. You got to get it, dial it in, to get it perfect like that every time. It works great. It works really good. Now you can buy just a crimper, also. Not a crimper. I'm sorry, a stripper. They have them on eBay. Yeah, but again, I don't know, 20, 30, $40, whatever, and you don't even know how it's going to work. And most of them only say 7 or 8 millimeter. I need 8.5. So I said, I don't know how that's going to work. And I was going to buy one. I said, nah, I can make one. I made it. I did my job, and I'll probably never use this again. I'll keep it, of course, but like I said, I need this stuff like every 10 years. So at least I upgraded from using just a razor blade and crimping it with a pair of pliers. I did that my whole life. I never had problems with ignition wires. Never, never, never. But it just looks really, you know, bub it up, you know. It looks like a really butcher job, you know, when you, but I never cared because you put the boot on and you don't see it, you know, as long as it holds it really good, you know. So with the crimper, and you know, at least it's somewhat professional now. Really, you know, it looks good and it holds it really tight. All right. Hope that helps somebody. Thanks for watching.